Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to G2 Gaming with the Gundam Man. And we are back here to talk about the Division beta. And as you guys know, I had a chance to get my hands on the game, on the beta. And in my first impressions video, I noticed that it was a little out of sync. The audio screwed up on me, and I don't know why. But anyways, if you guys have watched it, then you kind of know what my opinion is, or what my opinion was on the game, on the beta. But now I am coming to you and talking about the actual thoughts about this beta. So let's actually get on with my review. After a few years of waiting, I have finally been able to get my hands on the Division. Woohoo! It was actually listed as one of my most anticipated games last year, because I was hoping we would get it last year. I figured I wasn't surprised that we weren't getting it last year, because I actually did find out that after I posted that most anticipated video games of 2015 that the Division wasn't coming out. But anyways, so it's been one of my most anticipated games since it was announced at E3 in 2013, which I believe was the E3 that it was announced at. I somewhat liked the premise of the game. I'm not exactly all that about all that for post-apocalyptic games with viruses that could cause zombies and stuff, but there are no zombies and viral infected humans in this game right now, and that's a good thing. But yeah, so I kind of somewhat liked the premise of the game, and I definitely liked how it looked. It looked amazing at E3, and now I have been able to play the game, or at least the beta version of the game, and I am here to give you my opinion on the beta and the potential for this game as a whole from what I've seen from this beta. So, let us begin.
You need to get your priorities straight.
Let me first start by saying, going into this beta, I was skeptical of the game as a whole due to reports that the game was going to be releasing without a lot of extra maps that we've seen and that we've been hoping for from the Division through other game conferences and other E3s and stuff. I was worried that Ubisoft was planning on releasing an unfinished game, which has become more and more a problem throughout the entire gaming industry, and I would have not liked that at all. And to a point, because of these reports, I still think they are, but from what I've played from the beta, I do not care nearly as much now, because wow, this beta is seriously something. I was impressed from my hands-on with the game so far. I already have enjoyed this game so much that I actually wish that they could just release the beta as to serve as a demo until we actually get our hands on the full game. I don't think I have ever felt that way about a beta or a game in my lifetime, not even from Battlefront. Now, of course, it is important to point out that this is only my second beta for a game that I have ever had access to, but even still, this beta was pretty darn good, and honestly could stand alone as just a demo for the game instead of just a beta.
Hey,
Now, I know I'm giving this beta some pretty high praise right now, but as much high praise as I'm giving it, I do pride myself in being unbiased. There are some flaws, quite a few actually, in regards to the visual side of the game thus far. And a few with the gameplay and overall experience in both the Dark Zone, which is the PvP area, and the safe single-player areas. So without any further delay, I will begin the bulk of my review of the Division beta right here and right now. Now, if you've seen my previous video about my first impressions, prepared to be taken in almost a complete 180. Again, going into the beta, I was skeptical of the game. When I first began to play it, I was not impressed by the overall graphics and presentation of the game. I felt like they had downscaled a lot of what I've seen of the Division in E3 a lot, or at least quite a bit. The world map was not as integrated into the actual game as it appeared it was going to be, but nevertheless, it was still pretty cool. So like the world map, you press the touchpad and in the trailers, it looked like it was just going to pop up and all that kind of stuff, and you would actually be standing through in the map, but that's not really the case anymore. It's actually like bringing up an entire map. So that's one of the things that I was a little taken aback by, that I was a little disappointed by. The layout of the city of New York, based on my single ever trip to the city, seemed pretty decent. I mean, it didn't seem terrible. And I know the Division is one of the games, or is a game that kind of prides theirself on making a accurate representation of the city that they're building the game in. So I think they did a pretty decent job. I would have liked to see a little bit more of the layout or the skyscrapers or the skyline in the game. If you look up, you don't really see a lot of the famous buildings that you would see. Instead, you have all these skyscrapers, but they're not exactly the ones that you're familiar with when you see New York. Anyways, I liked the gridded outline in the layout that the city holds, that they made the city appear to be. And again, like I said, I think it's pretty accurate of the city, but it did make getting around the city a little tedious. But there are enough side alleys and shortcuts that you can learn that will get you through the city and parts of the city a little bit easier, a little bit better. And this actually helps out a lot when you're in the dark zone. But I mean, a lot of the travel for me was pretty much going straight up the street until you get to an intersection, then decide which way you want to go, whether you want to go straight, left, or right, or back, and then repeating the process. You follow that road to the next intersection, and then you decide where you want to go, and then you follow that road to the next intersection, and yada yada yada. But it still wasn't that bad. It was a little repetitive, but again, it was just really tedious. I would like to see the Division put some sort of faster mode of travel. Maybe not a car, because I mean the roads are littered with parked and abandoned cars. So that would make traveling in a car less practical. But like an ATV or a motorcycle or something like that. That would be nice for them to just kind of put into the game to make traveling a little bit faster. I don't think you need to put it in the dark zone because that would make people have an unfair advantage. But in the single player area, why not? It doesn't hurt too much, in my opinion. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about the layout of the game. Again, graphically, I did not think this was the juggernaut I thought it'd look like. That's not to say that it is a bad-looking game. In actual honesty, it's probably one of, if not the best-looking Ubisoft game to date. Way better than Watch Dogs and any Assassin's Creed game. Though, in order to be fair to this Assassin's Creed universe, AC does have a different art style and approach to it than The Division. The Division's a little bit more realistic, and so is Assassin's Creed, but Assassin's Creed is a lot more historical and all that kind of stuff. The Crew was another gorgeous game by Ubisoft, but even that pales in comparison to even just the beta of The Division. Even though I said I was not personally impressed with the game's graphical prowess, again, despite saying that it's the best Ubisoft game, best looking Ubisoft game, I was impressed with the visual effects of the game for the most part. Now let me explain. This could get a little confusing. Graphically and the overall look of the game I didn't think was all that great. But what I mean by visual effects is the weather and the environment around you. At first glance, yeah, sure, it's just another game. Another game, and rendering looks a little better than most games, but it doesn't blow me away. However, as you remain in that game longer and longer, the weather starts to change and the visual depth starts to change with it, and you are genuinely affected by it. There are countless moments where I was playing the game and it was clear. You could see all the way down the street, a couple blocks down the street, and then a few minutes later, there was this intense fog that prevented me from seeing even the end of the building that I was right next to. And this affected me and affected the way I played the game, especially in the dark zone. it was a bit nerve-wracking and stressful as the fog started to roll in and visibility started to drastically reduce, not knowing if another player or just a NPC was going to walk out of this fog and start shooting you. You were more likely to get a player to come out of the fog and start shooting you than you would an NPC coming out of the fog and start shooting you. But even still, you didn't know, and that was a little nerve-wracking, and that was kind of scary, not knowing what was on the other side of the fog. Like, you start walking and then all of a sudden you see all these people coming right at you and you're like, oh crap. If you had been able to see clear down the block, you wouldn't be worried about it. But the weather rolled in, visibility dropped, and now you're screwed. But yeah, so I really, the fog and the weather really forced me to change the way I played the game depending on the weather. If it was clear, I wouldn't really worry about it too much. I would be able to see everything. I would be able to scout everything pretty good. But if it was foggy, I was really more focused on reading my mini-map more frequently. Because there's these like little enemy red sensors on the mini-map that gave you notice if there were enemies around you. It also forced me to turn every corner a little bit slower and with a little bit more caution, and with my sights up, ready to fire if I needed to. But yeah, the visual effects in this game are amazing, and I couldn't be more happy with the game from that aspect. Now, while we're on the topic of the Dark Zone, I must say I found this PvP area enticing and pretty darn cool. Now, as you guys know, I am one to shy away from PvP play of multiplayer. I don't really enjoy it. One in particular reason is because I suck. But anyways, in Destiny, I did multiplayer, but always as co-op. I actually like the co-op opportunities in multiplayer, but I don't like putting up against other players more often than not. Very rarely did I ever willingly venture into the Crucible, and I say willingly because I only played the Crucible with my buddies and almost never by myself. The Division's Dark Zone, on the other hand, is a completely different story, and it is really cool. Whereas I could possibly only play a couple of team death matches, PvP modes, and other only a few rounds at a time, whether it's in Battlefront or Destiny or anything like that, I literally felt like I could spend an entire gaming session in the Dark Zone, and I've never really felt that way about any game that I've played that has a multiplayer. I feel like the only thing that can make the Dark Zone a little bit better is if they included Dark Zone missions or something like that. It would make getting Dark Zone rank a little bit more enticing. You would think finding the Dark Zone crates would make it enticing enough. But honestly, I never once found a crate that I could open with my low Dark Zone rank. And I very rarely found crates at all. I think I only found like 2 Dark Zone crates that I could open, but I had to be ranked 10 or 12 to open them. I was able to get to the Dark Zone rank 6 before the end of the beta, but I got there slowly through killing all the NPCs I could find and hoping not to die in the process. Again, I feel like adding a few Dark Zone missions would help with my motivation in getting Dark Zone rank. Not to mention, I think that it would allow for a lot of interaction between players within the Dark Zone. The Dark Zone is good to say the least. I saw much like the wilderness area in RuneScape, the PvP wilderness area in RuneScape. It's literally pretty much a seamless transition between the single player area and the PvP area, and the best gear that can be found is often in the PvP area, which is pretty cool. I mean, yeah, I know Destiny, the more you played PvP things, the good you had chances of getting good gear, but in all reality, forcing people to do player death matches and team death matches is not very enticing to me. I don't really like it. Again, a lot of the reason is because I suck at those kind of games, whereas PvP and the PvE area in the Division and even in RuneScape is a little bit easier for me to play in. So yeah, it's a seamless transition between the single player and the dark zone, and the best gear can be found in the dark zone. You could leave the area whenever you wanted to as well. For a guy who doesn't like PvP areas, usually that was an awesome thing to do, or an awesome thing to know, as well as like, alright, I spent all my time here in the dark zone, I'm going to go ahead and leave and go back to the single player mission. Instead of, oh, I'm going to load out of this thing and then get into the mission again. It's like, you willingly leave the single player missions in the single player area, knowing where you are, and then you leave and then you go into the dark zone. And once you're done with the dark zone, you can literally just walk back into the single player mode, and that is so cool. I don't think very few games actually offer that ability to just seemingly walk in and out of player versus player modes. The Division does. However, much like in RuneScape, you could more or less do your own thing, and unless you ran into another player, then you could decide whether or not to go after them. Unless they had a red skull on their name, you could literally decide to flee or face them and attempt to kill them for loot. Again, it was awesome to not be worrying about constantly loading every player up with bullets. It was awesome to hold them at gunpoint until you felt comfortable around them. It was like, I am not going to trust you unless you keep walking or you drop your weapon first, or something like that. I was like, if I saw a player pointing their gun at me, I would point my gun at them, and if they continued walking or if they dropped their weapon, then I would be fine. I would keep going. Or maybe I realized they had loot and I would help them extract it. I'm not really all that greedy in the dark zone. But yeah, unless they had a red skull next to their name, which meant they went rogue, you pretty much had the decision whether or not you wanted to kill the person in front of you, or help them out, or just kind of ignore them. Now, if they had a red skull next to their name, then you pretty much either have to fight them or you'd have to run away from them, because they're more than likely going to be coming after you. But really, the best part about the dark zone is that you could pretty much do whatever you wanted to do at your own pace. And again, this is a really nice transition, or a difference between the dark zone and the Division's multiplayer versus all the typical shooter multiplayers, where you put in a map on one team and then you have to fight and kill everybody on the other team in the map. And the fact that you didn't have teams unless you went in with your own group, or you didn't really have an agenda, you had your own agenda and not everybody else's agenda to worry about, was a very nice relief and very fun experience. I could spend hours in the dark zone, and I actually did. But that's really enough about the dark zone for now. Now I'm going to be talking about the overall gameplay and possibly the best part of this game, the customization. First, let's talk about the gameplay. The controls and the overall gameplay work very much like your typical shooter. R1's to fire, L2's to aim, R3's to melee, squares to reload, yada yada yada. If you've played any first-person shooters or any other third-person shooters, you pretty much know the controls and the gameplay of this game. You also had abilities that you could equip to your character that were different depending on your preferences. I chose the bomb and the health because you can never have too much health. If you don't have health, you die. That's just the simple aspect of it. But some players could elect to equip abilities under 3 categories. I believe the 3 categories were medical, technical, and security. The ones that were available during the beta were the Pulse, which is a scan very similar to that of the Pulse thing in Battlefront, where you scan the area around you and enemies and allies pop up, and other opportunities pop up. You had some sort of proximity bomb that had ability to be a sticky bomb on its 2nd level, or its perk or whatever. And then you also had the ability of using a riot shield that limited to you only using your secondary weapon And each one of these abilities had a chance to change the way you played the game. I countlessly ran into battle by shooting an explosive at enemies and taking their health down to a more manageable level. And enemy health levels were a big issue for me. If you remember in my Division Beta First Impressions video I died 2 times on a mission before I actually got through it, because I was expecting it to be a lot like a typical shooter where enemies fall within 1 or 2 shots after a headshot. You would think that it would just fall down after a headshot dead. Nope, I shot this guy in the head and he was still going. It did not take very much health away from him, which I was really, really surprised. And then they started lighting me up and I died quickly. Eventually, whenever I learned the ropes and I got used to the damage scale and how everything worked, I really started to enjoy the game. That being said, though, this is very much a cover-based shooter, and the cover system works very well in this game. You hit X to go under or go into cover behind a barricade, behind a car or whatever, and then you look for your next move and you hold X until you get there. I think that's a very cool cover system that Division was able to create for this game. And I know it's not necessarily groundbreaking because there's other games like that, but at the same time it's still pretty cool. But because it is a cover-based game, do not expect to survive if you neglect cover. You will have a very hard time in this game if you neglect cover, unless you have way better equipment, gear, and weapons up against the NPCs or other players with lower levels, and you are most likely to be less likely to be successful than more likely to be successful because you neglect cover. But overall, the gameplay is fun and it really makes things interesting. It was nice not to be playing a game where you could kill somebody in three shots or so, but rather it had a little bit more. It forced you to focus on shooting the shots in specific areas. If you shot them in the leg, it was going to take less health away. If you shot them in the chest, it would take more health away. If you shot them in the head a couple times, they'd fall pretty quick, but definitely not in like 2 shots. Every target that I had to take down still took a little while to take down, and I actually enjoyed that. It was nice. It was a good change of pace to have NPCs that way. Now in regular multiplayer games, it's usual, it's normal to have to shoot other player a couple times before killing them. But against NPCs, you're usually just used to shooting them a couple times and then they fall and they die. Not so in this game. Alrighty, now it's time to talk about the best part of this game, the customization. Okay, so most open world games and open world RPGs have some sort of customization. However, none have it to this depth and haven't had it to this depth in a long time. At least the ones that I've played. The customization in this game was just short of spectacular. Actually, it was pretty spectacular. Honestly, this game has almost the perfect amount of customization, and I only say that because I haven't seen the true extent of the character creation mode yet. Now, if that thing is awesome, this game's customization level or detail is just amazing. But yeah, we haven't seen the true extent of the character creation mode, so I can't really talk all about that just yet. But in the opening part of the beta, you do have the basic select your character model, male, female, eyes, hair, all that kind of stuff. But you are only relegated to a couple of face models for the beta. But yeah, so I am not one to mod weapons very much. Or things like that, but I am one to change appearances throughout the game, as evidenced by my Witcher 3 walkthrough. I changed my haircut, I changed the armor I used just so I looked different at any given time. I wanted longer hair at some point, I wanted shorter hair at some point, I wanted a cooler outfit, I wanted blah 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 blah. But this game, I did a lot with weapon mods. Even though I do not typically mod weapons, I sure as heck did in this game, and will continue to do so when the game drops in March. The mods do actually help, and in a game where enemies are more difficult than normal to take down, you need your mods on your weapons to actually make them easier to take down. And most other games that allow for mods that I have experienced personally, they do not make enough of an impact or change the game enough for me really to care about modding my weapon. From sights, grips, mags, muzzles, and skins, all types of mods are available for your weapon in this game, and it's very cool. I mean, different grips might have different colors, they might have different attributes and all that kind of stuff. It's really cool. Your weapon does look pretty awesome after a couple of mods here and there. Now, we didn't really have access to the skin, so I haven't really been able to see what the skins options allow you to do in this game. But I imagine if it's as cool as everything else, then it's gonna be pretty fantastic. This system goes into great detail. Not every mod will work with every weapon. You actually have like 3 categories of mods. I think it's really 2. Large weapons and small weapons. And small weapons often include your handguns. The entire modding process is quite fulfilling. On top of the excellent weapon modding system, this game also has great appearance customization. Easily the best I've seen recently, and again, this is just from the beta. This is clearly just from the beta. If the beta had this much customization, either the actual game will just have this much, or it could have a lot more. And if it just has this much, I'm still gonna be okay with it, but I'm hoping that it does have more. You get different headgear, jackets, shirts, boots, and pants. And you can take off some of these layers. Like, you can take off your jacket and just wear the shirt. You can't take off your jacket and the shirt and just have bare skin. But you can take off the jacket and just show your shirt, or you can put on your jacket and change the shirt underneath it and all that kind of stuff. It's pretty freaking cool. One of the best. If you wanted to wear a hat or a beanie, you could do that. If you didn't want to do it, you could take it off. You could change your boots. I'm very satisfied with the customization level in this game. This is all on the external level too, so this does not include the gear that you also have the option to change as well. The appearance customization is pretty much just for how you look. It has nothing to do with any attributes. It doesn't change attributes. It doesn't do anything to your character. It just makes you look cooler. You can change just the appearance and still keep all of the attributes of your gear. On top of those appearance options, like I said, which do not affect any of your stats and are purely for aesthetics, you have armor that you can select from, which also alter your stats and a little bit of your appearance as well. You have different vests, gloves, holsters, backpacks, knee pads, and masks. Each one, now because this is more for your stats, they don't have a specific, they don't focus on changing everything up from the appearance aspect of it, but they do change up a little bit. Now some look very, very similar and others do look drastically different. It's awesome. So with a combination of the different visual customizations that you can do on both your character and your weapons and the armor that you have, it's very hard and highly unlikely that you will find someone else that looks exactly like you in the entire game. And for an open world RPG MMO game such as The Division, that is awesome and a somewhat important thing to have. I want to feel as unique as possible in a game like The Division and all that kind of stuff. But that being said, whereas The Division won't make somebody stand out from the crowd, it won't make you blend in to the crowd either. And I'm okay with that as long as my character looks like I want it to look like. Well, there you go. Those are all the good things about the game. However, as with all reviews, there must be some bad sides to be talked about. And there is. The bad sides are mostly on the visual side and sides and effects sides of things. But there are some issues that I do have with this game, but only on a minor level. The biggest ones, like I said, that I have with this game are on the visual and effects side. I said earlier that the visuals were pretty good, though not as good as I expected. However, the visual effects with the fog and the snow were amazing and probably the best I've seen in any game to date. Ubisoft went into great detail when making this game, for the most part. I mean, snow falls off bushes whenever you walk through them. Player models close doors as they walk past the cars with their hand, etc. However, these kind of small details are not present everywhere. I would have liked to see water on the streets ripple and splash whenever the character walks through it, but that doesn't happen. It just has the same effect when walking through the snow and the streets as it does whenever you walk through the water. And now if that stuff is ice, then you could at least make it a little bit slippery and have a risk of falling down and slipping on the ice instead of just having the same effect of walking through the street. I think that would be also a place that you could put some comic effect into the game as well. And if you made that happen, an additional thing for a player to keep in mind, if they're in the process of fleeing and they run and they accidentally slip on ice because they weren't paying attention to where they were going. My next biggest issue is also regarding the Dark Zone. Even though I enjoyed my time in the Dark Zone, it would have been nice to have some sort of way to increase my Dark Zone rank other than going out and getting killed and killing thugs and other players throughout the Dark Zone. Like I said before, I didn't really enjoy, or I was very bad at finding these crates, and I only found 2, maybe 3 crates that I could actually access if my Dark Zone rank was as high as it needed to be. But anyways, like I said, even though I enjoyed my time in the Dark Zone, it would have been nice to have some way of increasing my Dark Zone rank other than going out and killing thugs that line the streets or rogue agents or extracting items. And I would like more incentive to increasing Dark Zone rank as well. Again, I usually got gear through killing the thugs versus getting Dark Zone crates and extracting those items. In fact, in the entire time I was in the Dark Zone, I never once found a crate that I can open to reap all the spoils. I found 3 crates that I could not open because of my Dark Zone rank. Trust me, I looked a lot, but eventually I just gave up and just focused on killing other NPCs and maybe targeting a rogue agent here and there. So either Ubisoft needs to put more crates that are accessible to lower level rank characters or Dark Zone rank characters or players, or if the reason is that the players got to them first, maybe increase the respawn rate and allow items to respawn faster. I feel like this would increase the amount of greed-driven action instead of just kill them for the heck of it actions. Another addition that I would like to see Ubisoft do or introduce to the game is some sort of trading economy between players in case a player wants to say thanks for protecting them while they extract the gear they were extracting, or some sort of optional payment method. I mean, kind of like having other players serve as like mercenaries for people wanting to extract items from the Dark Zone. Like I have went through this case where I got an item and I extracted, and this is before I really learned the true nature of the Dark Zone PvP players, but I went to extract, and there were like 2 or 3 people that came to my location, and I didn't think nothing of it. Maybe they had other items that they needed to extract as well. So I waited around until the helicopter arrived and dropped the rope and all that kind of stuff, and I tried to extract, and the second I went to the rope, they opened fire on me, and I lost everything that I was trying to extract. Granted, I don't think that item that I was trying to extract was worth very much, but even still, they shot me dead as I was trying to extract my items. But that stuff there, I would love if somebody came up to me and just kind of helped me and assisted me in extracting my stuff, like keeping enemies off my back in the process while I extracted my stuff. I would have paid or compensated the player that helped me do that. And I feel like there's a lot of players that would be willing to do that kind of method if a payment method an optional payment method was available to the game. I think that would bring a whole nother dynamic to the game instead of making it a place where players are intended to kill other players. They can make it a place where players can kill other players, but also help other players as well. I believe that would build a community thing to it as well. Make it to where there could be some sort of reward for helping others. I believe this would put the Division on top, over the top for me, if that kind of gameplay was added to the game. I mean, come on, Ubisoft, make it happen for the final game. Well, that's pretty much it, ladies and gentlemen. That is my review for the Division beta. I guess the only thing left now is to measure it. Honestly, I really like the game. There's so much potential for this game because this is just the beta. There's so much more improvements that could be made and that might be made and that will more than likely be made that can make this game so much better than even Destiny. And I enjoyed Destiny despite what some people might think. I just thought that it was a game that got old fairly quickly. However, as much as I did enjoy the beta, I can only give it a 7 out of 10. And that is mainly because I could not get much of a good read on the storyline driving the game. Again, I am aware that it is a beta and you're not supposed to give me much about the story, but because this is a beta, it is more about testing the servers, the gameplay experiences, and the glitches and the problems that might be involved with the game, rather than exposing the audience to the story. Also, another aspect that I think I am knocking this for, that I'm going to knock this for at the moment, is the graphical prowess. I understand again that this is a beta and is not the final look, but I do realize that because this is a beta, a playable beta that was open to a closed section of people, that this game is close. This is how the ending and the final product will look. But and if that is the case, the graphical prowess of this game is not as good as I was expecting, as I was hoping for. But again, it is still really good. Like I said earlier, it's probably the best looking Ubisoft game. My main reason for knocking it on its graphics right now is because most of their marketing and a bunch of their marketing and demos for this game, whether it was at E3 or at another gaming conference or convention, or whether it was just the Division releasing some like spots on TV or on the internet, a lot of it focused on how great this game was going to look. And again, this game does look good, but I didn't think it looked as good as
it looks like they've got people upstairs.
The marketing for this game makes it seem like it should have. Also, the Dark Zone does need quite a bit of work. Even though I did enjoy my time there, I can play a whole entire game session in the Dark Zone, but it still does need a bit of work if they want to make that a focus of the game. Right now, I literally go to the Dark Zone just if I'm bored with the single player aspect, if I want a little bit more dynamic, if I want something else to kind of consider rather than just shooting at all NPCs. I do think that there might need to be a little bit more NPCs. I mean, I was kind of disappointed that walking some streets there were no NPCs, which I mean you can't have NPCs line the entire game, but like make them a little bit more frequent. Not in like overbearing gangs, of course, because the way this game is made and the gameplay of this game, if you're up against 6+ thugs all at one time, then you're gonna be in trouble. You're gonna have a hard time surviving that encounter, even if you're in cover. There needs to be more content available for the Dark Zone. Again, all this stuff is good for the beta, but because the beta is a test and is a preview of the actual final product, if I was going to grade this, if this was a final product, it would be a 7 out of 10. And that's why I am giving this a 7 out of 10. Again, even though this is a review for a beta, betas are used for more of opinions and issues on the coming complete game, of what the coming complete game will be like. So, for a first look at the Division, it is good. Knowing that this is only a beta is a good thing, because I really do enjoy this game and all that kind of stuff. This is a very, very promising start and a great start for the Division. If they can just if Ubisoft can make a couple more improvements on the game, then I think this game will be a Game of the Year contender. If everything is the way, if everything stays where it's at for the beta, but also improves, I think it'll be very fun for a couple of months, probably even years to come. Like I said, this could very much end up being my fallback game whenever I get bored with other games as well. To this, I have to say thank you, Ubisoft, for making a game like this, and please make it even better within the last month that you have available. I know games usually go gold couple, like 2-3 weeks before the game is actually released, so I'm not exactly sure what that entails. I mean, if this game is supposed to be released March 8th, right, then it would have to go gold probably shortly after Valentine's Day or shortly before the 3rd week of February. And if there's open betas planned for later in February, I don't see how they can go gold and release this game on March 8th if it's supposed to take place at the end of February. If this open beta is supposed to take place at the end of February, I would be playing the open beta, but at the same time, I do not see how this game could be available on an open beta if usually games go gold within 2 to 3 weeks before it's released. This game rumored to have an open beta towards the end of February, and March 8th is like the first week of March. So take that for what it's worth. I do kind of hope I get another chance to play The Division before it comes out. It was a good beta, but I mean, I don't think I will. But hey, I might be wrong. There you go, folks. Thanks for watching. Leave a like, leave a comment, leave whatever. Subscribe to the channel, especially if you want to see more videos for The Division. March 8th. I cannot get here any quicker now. I am very much looking forward to this game, even more so than I was earlier. And it's going to be a good, fun ride. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, like, comment, subscribe, adios, and peace until next time.